Hi everyone, Michael here again from Mirrors of Consciousness and creator of the Orbifold Tarot and upcoming Arcanum X Tarot with more Cartomancy. This is kind of a follow-up to the Cartomancy 101 video that I posted where I talked mostly about red or black and yes or no questions and a little bit into suits. So I wanted to go a little bit further into the nature of that red and black balance and how to utilize it, and some of the nuance of positive versus negative, or favored versus unfavored outcomes with the red and black technique. So it's fairly common when using playing cards to go with 3-card spreads. Of course, there are many more, and we'll get into that later. But a great beginner spread with Cartomancy is 3 cards, and you can, of course, assign different positions to the 3 cards, just like tarot. 3-card readings in tarot are a very common thing, very, very well used and well loved thing. And often when we use tarot, we're assigning positions to each of the 3 cards. This card means this card means this card means this. So like past, present, future. I posted a video quite a while ago, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Body, heart, mind is a good trio. There's all kinds of trios. Anything you can think of as a trio can be a 3-card reading. But when you're using playing cards, often, even though you can assign spread positions to each of those 3 cards, they're often just read as a triad, read 3 together. There is a little bit of a sense of time involved, in the sense that the last card is kind of the result of the triad, and the first card is kind of where you're starting out, but it's not necessarily past, like 3 days ago or 5 weeks ago or 7 years ago. It's kind of where you're at, where you're starting at, or the conditions. Then the middle is kind of what's going on now, and then the third card tends to be, here's the result, here's the outcome. Although all 3 can be read together as the result, the outcome. But that said, so in the previous video I said the simplest aspect is if it's mostly red or all red, it's yes. If it's mostly black or all black, it's no. But when you get to 3 cards and more, because of that subtle aspect of time involved, you may actually end up with a no, even when there's only 1 card that's black. So with a 3-card line, or even a 5-card line, sometimes it's like red, 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 black. That could indicate everything seems to be going well, but the result is that it's going to take a downturn. So these are pretty logical. You can have, let's take 3 cards for example, just because it's the simplest, and it's still odd that yields either more red or more black. So 3 red is obviously going to be quite positive. 3 black, again, obviously going to be quite negative. Although again, there could be nuance to both of those. Then you could have 2 blacks and a red, or 2 reds and a black. Basically, that's all the possible combinations you could have. But the order of those combinations matters. So if you have red, black, red, that's going to signify starts out well, looks favorable, but then there's some challenge somewhere along the way, and maybe you're in the middle of that challenge. Maybe you're facing that challenge right now. But then things are going to resolve, things are going to work out in that third card. So it's still a yes. It's a yes with challenge. Same balance of red or black, 2 reds and a black, but say it starts with a black and then 2 reds. It's like, okay, this started out rough for you, but it's getting better and it will continue to get better. Opposite, 2 reds and a black, so red, red, black, finishing with a black. Things are looking great, things are going well, but watch out. Something's gonna present a challenge soon. A challenge is coming, an unfavorable outcome is maybe coming. And that happens in life. Sometimes you're like, but I did everything right, and I didn't get this, or I did everything right, and then the person didn't sign the contract or whatever, you know. And then the same principles apply when you have black, black, red. So black, black, and then red finishing is, oh, it's rough, it's challenging, but there's going to be a reward. It's looking favorable in the end, or in the near future. The end is only the end when it's the end, but it's challenging now. It's going to pick up. It's looking favorable soon. Red, black, black. So first card's red, then it's black. It was good, or it's looking okay right now, like it's happy now, but soon there's going to be a downturn, or even right now you're in the middle of a challenge and the challenges are just going to keep coming. So that's not really a very favorable thing. And then of course the last possibility is black, red, black, which is challenge, and then things pick up, things are looking okay, but then it's going to be challenging again. And then when you get larger spreads, more cards, longer lines, 5 cards, 5-card lines are quite popular too. It's the same kind of principle. One thing about that, the more cards you have, the more cards you're using in a spread, the more likely the outcome, just basing things on yes or no, or red and black, I should say, the more likely it's going to be a soft yes or a soft no or a maybe. A lot of card spreads, most I would even say, are often odd numbered spreads, so that you're always going to get, with an odd numbered spread, you are always going to get a slight yes or no. It's always going to be slightly more red cards or slightly more black cards. But the more cards you draw, just by statistics, just statistically, you're more likely to get a softer yes or no. If you only pull 1 card, it's a 50-50 chance, right? You will get, unless you have a trick deck that sometimes magicians use, stage magicians use, where you might have a queen. Sometimes they have like a queen of hearts and a king of spades. That's a reversible card, and so the top half of the card is queen of hearts and the bottom half is king of spades. But in most cards you wouldn't pull that. Most decks you wouldn't pull that card. So that would be obviously a maybe if you have one of those trick decks and you want to include it in your deck. That can be fun, and if you do pull that card, it's kind of like a joker. Like in that situation, it's kind of like a joker. Yes, it's a maybe. It's a wild card. But that said, with 1 card, of course, you've got a 50-50 chance of yes or no. I mean, you always have a 50-50 chance of yes or no, but when you pull 3 cards, those combinations, as we just went through, those combinations are greater. You have a smaller chance of getting 3 red cards or 3 black cards, which would represent a strong yes or a strong no. And then if you're doing like a 9-card square, it's even more unlikely that you're going to get all red or all black. It's possible. It could happen. There's certainly enough cards in the deck for you to get 9 black or 9 red. And if that did happen, then that's quite a strong yes or no. It almost strengthens the yes or no the more red or black cards you have. Or if you have like 8 red and only 1 black, again, that would be pretty rare, but that's a very strong yes. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're using if you're asking yes or no questions, and if you're using spreads of more than 3 cards, just know that there's a kind of a wider range of nuance between yes and no that you could get for those. To go a little bit deeper than that, there's also gradations of yes or no within each suit. So generally the spade suit is seen as being the most negative. And again, I don't necessarily always agree with that. Sometimes there are situations where spade can be positive. But generally they're considered, it's a strongest, in the context of yes or no, it's the strongest no, usually. Whereas clubs represent, again, in that context of yes or no, clubs represent a challenge. They represent something you have to work through before a positive will result. They represent effort that needs to be put forth. So it's not a no, and sometimes it can be really a strong yes. Like, let's say the question is something like, if it's a querent who's a laborer who makes their money on having lots of work, and they ask, will I be getting more work soon? If you get certain club cards, especially stronger club cards, and especially if they're combined with diamonds, then it would be a yes. Even if it's more clubs than diamonds, it would be like, yeah, you're going to get more work. Now, it may mean you're going to get more work and not very well paid for it. That's a possibility. But if the question itself is, will I get more work? Will the work pick up? And there's clubs, then it's more of a yes. And then red cards, hearts are usually seen as the warmest and the strongest yes in that context of yes or no, and diamonds are a bit closer to clubs in that sense. If we have a continuum of yes, no, hearts would be on the stronger side of yes, spades would be on the stronger side of no, then diamonds and clubs in the middle. Although again, it depends on the question. So if the question is, will I be rich? Everyone, people usually want to know, will I fall in love or will I be rich? Let's say you ask, will I be rich? And it's 3 heart cards. It's a yes, but it'll be like, well, but you'll be rich, but not with money. You'll have something, you'll have a fulfilling life and rich in an emotionally fulfilling way. You'll get to fulfill your passions. You'll be rich in passion and all that. But it won't be a monetary richness. Um, or in answer to the question of will I fall in love, and it's all diamonds, then it's like, well, there might be a relationship on the horizon that where the person is financially well off. You may be very successful financially, or it not even necessarily financial. Thinking again of that sense that diamonds are all about sparkle. So it's like, well, you might enter a relationship with someone who's really attractive and really looks good on paper, has kind of all of the, if you have a checklist of what the ideal mate might be, it might hit all those notes, but you might not really love that person. Which this again happens all the time in life. People could sometimes come with into relationships with checklists of what they want out of a relationship or what they want out of a mate, and then um, find that the person they fall in love with doesn't meet those, but they're really in love. Um, or all the checks are there and nothing, don't feel it, you know. So that's, I mean, that's the complexity of the human experience. So again, cards are a reflection. They're not a god. They're not an external deity that dictates your experience. They're a reflection of your experience. So that's why in some cases spades might be positive. Um, you might ask some kind of question like, um, say you're a really busy person, you just got a really full lifestyle, not necessarily with work, but just really your schedule, your life is very full, um, and not necessarily in a fulfilling way, but in a way that is draining and is taxing. But maybe you have obligations and you can't get out of them, um, and you ask a question like, um, will my lifestyle kind of lighten up soon? um, will my schedule become a little bit more free? um, yeah, you might want to see some hearts there if you drew cards to answer that question. But if you drew some cards and it was like hearts and spades, or even lots of spades, it might indicate, yeah, even though usually a spade would be a no, it might be like, yeah, your schedule is going to lighten up. There are going to be some things that are freed up. Now, that could also, because spades are considered more negative, it could be from some kind of um, negative cause. It might be like, well, you might lose your job, or um, an organization that you volunteer for, an obligation that you may have, that obligation may dissolve, which, yeah, might let you off the hook in terms of your obligation, but it might also be something you really wanted to do. So you might feel a bit of a loss for that. Or it might be some kind of project that you've been working on that will come to an end, that you'll finish, you'll cut. Spades are about cutting. Um, so if you finish that project, that may cut that time, that obligation that you've set aside to that. And you may actually have sometimes, I know this really well because I do a lot of projects. Sometimes the joy is in the working on the project and not so much the finishing. And that's sometimes why people take a long time. That's not always the case for me, but sometimes that's why people take a long time to finish a project, because they're enjoying the process of working on a particular project, and they're like, I like this project so much, I don't want it to end. um, so that could be a situation where a spade, um, in reference to the question, will my schedule free up a little bit, and you got lots of spades, it'll be like, yeah, you'll finish this, and that'll free up your life. and that there might be a loss there in one sense because you won't be able to be working on this thing that you love so much, but then at the same time, it'll be finished and you'll be able to allocate that time to something else. So there is much more nuance in there, and I won't go through all the combinations possible, even within a 3 card um, line of hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades, because not only is it dependent on the combination, so like say diamond, club, heart, that's one combination, and it has its own nuance within itself. Um, but it would also depend on the question asked. So that provides much more context to whether diamond club's heart is a favorable outcome or not. Um, some people might ask, well, how could hearts be negative? Um, let's say that you have you ask a question of um, how does this person feel about me, which I know isn't a yes or no. Um, it is more open ended, but it's like high hearts, like 10 of hearts, 9 of hearts, 8 of hearts, even ace of hearts. And in this case that I'm about to suggest, ace of hearts might be considered a high card. Um, it might represent someone infatuated with you, which sounds great. If the feeling's reciprocal, awesome. If the feeling's not reciprocal, then that's an unfavorable outcome. You don't want the person, like, you want the person maybe to like you. You don't, most of us usually don't want to be hated by anyone. Some of us don't care if people hate us, but usually, even if we don't care if people hate us, we don't want to be hated by anybody. Um, generally, we usually want to be liked, but uh, there's such a thing as too much. Sometimes, if someone's infatuated with you, like it could be a stalker situation, like it could be Jack of Hearts, Ace of Hearts, and 10 of Hearts, something like that, could represent a stalker type situation, especially if the Jack is looking at the Ace. Then it's like this person's overwhelmed with this feeling, and their focus is solely on you as this one person. Um, and again, like if the feeling is mutual, then that's a positive reading. That's great. That's awesome. If the feeling's not mutual for that person, then that's a bad reading. 3 hearts sounds like great. Um, but it's like, no, I don't want you infatuated with me. So this is why the nuance of the question really influences um, the outcome of the reading of the cards, even in yes or no contexts, and even stripping it back to either just red or black, or just looking at the suits and not, for now, paying any attention to the numbers. We will get into numbers soon, but I'm going to try to stay away from one card at a time. This card means this, 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 and this. Although I will do that. I will actually do that for a few cards. I will, because there's some cool things about certain cards that I just want to share, that aren't necessarily defined meanings, but I think I find them interesting, and so if I find them interesting, somebody else has got to find it interesting somewhere, and they may help you again with finding more nuance in your readings. Anyway, my iPhone storage is going to tell me that my storage is full again, so I won't be able to record again until I empty that, and so I will bid you good day. The autumn light is finally coming in nicely, which is too bad because it's great light for filming, but hopefully I'll get some of that tomorrow to film some more content for you. So take care, take out your cards, and play.